time. Good morning, everybody. It's yours truly, DJ Val. I am here in La Studio all by myself, which can mean one thing and one thing only, right? We have come to the end of the regular season of What's on Your Mind, season 6, and we're now in what we call the interview stage, where we do the special interviews. And we've been really fortunate over the past 6 seasons. We get some really engaging and meaningful guests that have been able to come out and share some wisdom with all of you. And I know that you guys really enjoy all of these kind of speciality shows and all the bits that we do. So we had got together with a friend of ours, Mr. Tunde Shokoya, who is an amazing pharmacist, he's really part of the community of where his pharmacy is, and that's the difference. You know, sometimes we go into some of these medical establishments and we see they're over the counter, but he really believes that he needs to be part of the community, and he has so many innovations, so many thoughts, so many things that he wants to share with us here on What's on Your Mind. So I am very, very pleased to welcome him to the Soul Food to What's on Your Mind. Soul Food Gospel Show is the other show. What's on Your Mind? By the way, the real deal Olive sends her love. She wishes she could be here, but you know what it's like with these things. It's always left to your boy DJ Val for him to anchor, and I do really love it. So I did catch up with Tunde a little bit earlier on. So this is a pre-recorded interview, and so a little bit about him. Tunde, he is an award-winning pharmacist. Let's not even, mince words. He's an independent prescriber. He's the owner of Easter Pharmacy, and that's in Buckhurst Hill in Essex. And from humble beginnings in Nigeria to the award-winning pharmacy business clinical award, Tunde has transformed his pharmacy into a cutting-edge clinical hub, offering services from pharmacy first consultation to hypertension care, contraception advice, and much, much more. With the innovative, and we're going to talk about this, state-of-the-art dispensing robot, he has a clear passion for people. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to welcome my brother, Tunde. As I said, we spoke with him a little bit earlier on, so I am very, very excited that I can bring this to you. Do remember, it was such a long interview, and he has so much nuggets, we had to kind of like chop it up and make it into pieces. So we got part 1, and then we're going to do part 2 next week. But buckle up, sit down, get ready. You are in for a real treat. To another one of those meaningful conversations with your boy DJ Val. Got a really special guest with me today, a dear brother. I think we've gone past the point of it being that professional relationship. We're kind of like friends now, So
yeah.
I'm really glad to have him here. He is he's really a 21st century pharmacist. The only person that I know that's got a robot in his pharmacy. He's going to tell you a little bit more about that. But Mr. Tunde Shokoya, you are welcome to Soul Food Gospel. It's lovely to have you here today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Val. And really, really, thank you very much for giving me a chance to come on your show. Really, I mean, we've talked about it and finally made it happen. So that's really, yeah.
And I love what you said when we were kind of like planning. We said, now if we leave this any longer, it's going to be one of those things that we will never get to do, right? And you're so right. And I think, just to kind of like jump ahead, because I always like to jump ahead, I've heard him speak before, when he did the opening, it was the anniversary of your pharmacy, Easter Pharmacy. And, I heard you speak really passionately about healthcare and some of the things that maybe had been neglected. And I said to Oliver, I said, yeah, definitely, we need to get him as a guest on the show at some point. And lo and behold, I think it's nearly a year later, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nearly a year later on, but super excited to have you here. Honestly, folks, get your pens and your pads ready. Tunde is a wealth of information and a wealth of knowledge, so you're going to really want to be taking notes as he begins to speak. But for those people that don't know you, I've said that you're a pharmacist, but there's a lot more to you than that. Just by way of introduction, just tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to this point of where you are at the moment.
Okay, yeah. So obviously, I'm Tunde Shokoya.
Mm.
Um, Nigerian origin. Obviously born in the UK, but did my secondary school and university in Nigeria, which I was very, very grateful for. So yeah, so started. I think there was a question somebody asked me once about where did it all start.
Yeah.
It all started from my secondary school. Shout out to Abusier Dumini Jebubo. I must always stress, because not a lot of people know, but it's a fantastic school to go to. So, yeah. So I was there, and again, I sometimes think it was divine intervention actually, because I was put into Abusi, and I had no idea what subjects I was going to do, but for somehow I ended up in year three science, which meant I was doing chemistry and maths. And so I then went to do my O levels, and I got, one of the highest marks in both physics. Sorry, no, chemistry and maths. So going into university, I got admitted into the University of Ife, which is now Obafemi Awolowo University. I originally got in there to study agriculture, and what I found out quite quickly was that the course that got the highest grades in chemistry and maths was
Mm.
pharmacy. Well, look, I'm really good at these two subjects. I should not be in agriculture. So I redid the JAMB entrance, and then I switched to pharmacy. And so that's how pharmacy was, it became a thing for me. The sad thing that happened to me in pharmacy, every single year while I was in Ife, I used to dance. I was part of a dance group. And in my final year, that I decided I was not going to do any dancing. I was just going to face my, studies fair and square. I ended up
Mm.
having to repeat the. So the moral of the story was, if I danced in my final year, I probably wouldn't have repeated my year. So yes.
There's always got to be a moral to the story, right?
So anyway, yes. After finishing from, if I came back to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for me, on the Friday, on the Monday, I had a job in Boots. So I started work at Boots in Tottenham Court Road. And they were very, very good to me. Gave me a bit of solid um, training with regards to working as a dispenser, because obviously I'd come from Nigeria with a pharmacy degree, so I wasn't able to practice as a pharmacist. So had to do the conversion. After the conversion, I then worked for Lloyd's Pharmacy for 12 years before finally biting the bullet and then getting into my own pharmacy. That's when I bought Easter Pharmacy, almost now just over 20 years ago. So yeah, best decision I ever made. I always tell people, and I encourage a lot of people that come into pharmacy, especially, a lot of our friends from Nigeria. I say, look, as soon as you can, just take that leap of faith and get your own pharmacy. It's so fulfilling. You can do so many things that you couldn't do if you're working for somebody. And I
Mm.
know, time's a bit hard, but I always say to people, you know, just take that courage and do, and once you put your mind to it, you can make it happen. So that's
Mm.
how I got pharmacy. And obviously I spent 12 years with Lloyd's Pharmacy, and I kept thinking, I hate this, having to just slap labels on boxes. And I said, this can't be the rest of my life. So obviously when I got my own pharmacy, I then decided, I had my vision of what things would look like. And quickly, I realized that, the UK shortage of doctors, pharmacists are very, very highly trained. And I just felt that my job, it shouldn't be just slapping labels on boxes. So I did a clinical pharmacy diploma. And at one stage, we were allowed to become prescribers. And I'll
Mm.
probably talk about what that did for me, especially over the COVID period,
Mm-hmm.
becoming a prescriber. But yeah, so and right from day one, my passion had always been about trying to ask questions. Why is this happening? Drugs. Yes, we know they are good for lots of things, but they do have side effects.
Mm.
And that's why, again, passion for finding out what can we do naturally, what sort of lifestyle changes can we make to ensure that, one, if we do end up on tablets, that we end up on as few tablets as possible. And by making the lifestyle changes, it means that they'll be more effective. So yeah, so that really, in a nutshell, is probably why I'm so passionate about lifestyle medicine, prescribing lifestyle.
Okay.
Okay.
I had a quick question to ask. So, obviously, I mean, a lot of people choose, to go down the actual doctor's route. Why didn't you feel that you wanted to go down that route?
To become a doctor, it's fine. It's good question actually, because a
Mm.
lot of people ask me after they've been to the pharmacy and we've had consultations and conversation. They say, "Oh, Tunde, you should be a doctor." And I say to them, oh, to be honest, if I was a doctor, you wouldn't be able to see me, and that's the bottom line. I wouldn't see me because if I was a doctor, I wouldn't have that interaction that I'm having, which I enjoy. I remember even working for pharmacy, they wanted
Mm.
to promote me to be a manager or a regional manager, and I sort of said no. Really, I want to stay in the community pharmacy, having that interaction with the patients, and that's what I love. I'm a people person, so I really do love that interaction. So unfortunately, if I did become a GP, yes, I might be seeing people, but having my own pharmacy means that I now have a second and even a third pharmacist in my pharmacy, which is very unusual, I might add. But it gives me that option to be able to spend as much time as I want with my patients when they come in. So there are no extra pressures on me to
Mm.
do other things. I've created that environment for myself. And as I said, that is why I feel that, yeah, the best use of my skills is in my community pharmacy.
Fantastic. That was an excellent answer, actually, because most people would have turned around and said something. Well, maybe it's a little bit too hard. It's a little bit this. It's a little bit that. But judging by your work ethic, I don't think that would have been the issue. But the fact that you are this people person, and I've got to say I bear witness to this, because you have inserted yourself in the community, and the community come out to support you left, right, and center. You're like the feature, you know.
Honestly, I obviously have to. I do give gratitude to God, really, because I do think everything. I always tell people that everything in my life happens for a reason, and there's so many times when I'm in a hurry to do stuff, and God just comes in and says, "Look, you know what? Just hang in there, and things will work themselves out." I told you. I'm sure I mentioned to you about a court case I lost, where I lost quite a lot of money, but
Mm.
with have righted themselves. So yeah, I really am grateful, and I feel that I've been put there for a reason. And I do feel over the years I have touched a lot of people's lives, and
Mm.
sometimes that is actually evident. I was mentioned we were discussing earlier.
Mm.
I've done about 7 over the years, and all my customers are constantly supporting me, and I've raised over £15,000. And the problem I had was that after I did 7 marathons and I wanted to put a stop to it, they would come and say, "Oh, Tunde, are you doing another marathon? I'll sponsor you. Are you doing another marathon?" I'm like, "No, actually, I'm not doing another marathon." But as they wanted, I'm now, obviously, my 60th year now. I decided it was time. Maybe I just did one last marathon. And so, yeah, I am starting that journey. And a lot of my customers are really happy that they keep coming and say, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll sponsor you. I'll sponsor you." So, yes, it's quite tough, but yes, it gives me purpose anyway. It really does give me purpose.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, yeah, well done. Kudos to you on that one, man. A marathon is not an easy feat. So, and again, it's great to see that interaction, that the people who you serve actually feel part of your journey as a community pharmacist. They're interested in just more than the prescribing. There's other elements as well, and I think that also promotes really good health when people feel that you're accessible, and they can come to you, and there's an openness there as well. So kudos to you, sir. Got a quick question though. So tell me, what kind of services do you currently offer or you champion at your pharmacy?
Okay. Yeah, I
Mm.
mean, we do a lot of the big one at the moment is called Pharmacy First, where
Mm.
basically for 7, I can't remember all of them, but one's a sore throat, ear infections, impetigo, shingles, water infection for women. I can't remember the other two, but there's 7 conditions which all pharmacies can now see people have a consultation with them. And a classic one is, somebody's got a sore throat, going to the pharmacy, we do some tests, take a few notes, a bit of a history, and find out if there is a bacterial cause. Now, we know that 70% of sore throats are viral and don't need antibiotics.
Hmm.
So therefore, if it's no need for antibiotics, then we would signpost you to, buy some over-the-counter meds, maybe some lozenges or throat sprays. But if there is a need and we identify that actually this could be a bacterial infection, then we are able to now provide you with, a course of antibiotics to help get rid of the infection. So yeah, part of our job is, I always say, part of our job is separating out the big sick from the little sick. So when you come
Good.
in and you've where got a few things that are maybe not going right, but there's nothing to, big there. We can signpost you for the right medication, and if need be, as I said, if there's an infection there, we can actually give you antibiotics. And very rarely, I would say, very rarely, we've had to signpost people to the hospital. So I
Mm.
would say in the last year, 3 people to hospital.
Oh,
One was a complicated sore throat, which was a condition called epiglottitis, and it's a very serious condition, and we had to make sure they got to the hospital quite quickly. So that's what a lot of pharmacists can do now. We can screen people just to rule out anything serious, and if it is like infections, we can treat, and if it's something extra serious, we can then do a straight referral to hospital.
wow. And I guess that's changed from how things used to be. From like when I remember, it was just like you go to Boots, you take your prescription, they give you what the doctor's told to give you, and pretty much you didn't get much help apart from that, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, I remember back in the day, when on a Saturday somebody would come into the pharmacy, a woman would come in with suspected water infection. She had all the classic symptoms, but I couldn't do anything. I would have to send her to Whipps Cross, which is the nearest hospital to us,
Yeah.
and they would have to go and sit maybe 4 or 5 hours and then come back with a prescription for 6 tablets of what I knew they were going to get anyway. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't give it at that stage. So.
Mm.
Um, it's quite good. It's been a great advancement for pharmacy. And I must also add that UK are probably the first group of pharmacies where we can do this. I think a lot of countries are looking to us to see how this pans out. We're only in the just end of the first year of this new scheme. But a lot of countries are actually looking. I know the US, I've got
Mm.
colleagues in the US allowed to do most of the things we do. And Nigeria, I know definitely. Recently, there was something in the news on one of my groups, and the doctors in in Nigeria do not even want to hear about pharmacists getting involved in the prescribing, thing. And when we talk about things like antimicrobial resistance, I think as pharmacists we have a much much more important role to play. We understand a lot more about the drugs, why you
Mm.
should be taking them, how taking them, and when you shouldn't be taking them, which is key. When we're looking at the fact that a lot of antibiotics are becoming, a lot of bugs are becoming resistant
Yeah.
to some of the antibiotics we have, so we have to really start making sure we use them rationally and not just, oh, I've got a
Yeah.
sore throat, I'm taking antibiotics. You don't always need. And just to quickly finish on that about because I was at a conference yesterday. Um, One of the things people don't understand is, especially with children, when you give a child too many antibiotics, it wipes out their gut flora. That is the good bacteria in their gut. And what that means is later on in life, they are the type of people that are going to become more prone to allergies, more prone to eczema, more prone to asthma. So these are the things which
Oh.
people don't understand is that obviously as a child, where you see a lot of people with food intolerances, people that have got allergies, and even, I'm not saying it's definite, but there is now some link to think, well, this increase in the number of people that we're seeing with things like ADHD, could there be a link to the gut microbiome? It's not definitive at the moment. There's still
Mm.
work, but we know for allergies, for
Hmm.
food intolerance, allergies, there are a lot more children with epipens and things like that these days. Again, a lot of that tracks back. We know that if you ask or look into their history, they would have had quite a few antibiotics in their first 2, 3 years of life. So that's why we try as pharmacists to try and educate people that look, their antibiotics are there for a reason, but if we can sort of keep them for those times when we definitely need them.
Mm. It sounds to me like you're really big on this whole wellness thing as opposed to medication. Tell me your thoughts about that and how that works out as you being a pharmacist, a prescribing pharmacist.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because again, as you said, as just being a pharmacist in the first place,
Mm,
the way we're paid is that the more prescription medication I give out, the more money I get. That's changing, but historically, if I, you know, gave you more prescriptions, then I would make more money. But right from day dot when I started, I knew that actually that it can't be the right way. There has to be other ways. It can't just be about medicines. And so quickly, my local GPs realized that Tunde is somebody that will look at, take a holistic view with the patient. And where necessary, I would say, look, no, let's stop this medication. I mean, a quick example, I had an elderly person that was on an antidepressant, an aspirin, and they were getting some really bad side effects. And the doctors gave them antibiotics, gave them steroids, gave them everything you could name.
yeah.
And I said, look, guys, can we not just look at some of these medications? One, why were they started in the first place? The antidepressant was started because she lost her husband 6 months ago.
Mm,
Now, with antidepressants, they're meant to be maybe for a short time for most people. And so I said to them, look, do we still need this lady on this antidepressant? And it turned out we could, wean her off. The same thing with the aspirin. She was on aspirin for something. I won't go into too much detail, but
yeah.
there's two different indications where we use aspirin. But the one indication that she was on it for, actually, there was not enough evidence for that. So we could take her off of it. So we took her off both those two tablets,
Mm,
and the rash that she had, that she'd been trying to get rid of for about 6 months, within about 3 weeks, disappeared. And I said to the doctor, "Do you want to put her back on the tablets?" They said, "No, no, no. Let's just keep her on the tablets." And she was as right as rain since. So but technically speaking, I've lost money by stopping two medication, but I've always felt there's a greater good in helping somebody. For example, especially with medication, don't always give people medication as the only solution. There are lifestyle changes people can make that can help. Look, there is a place for medicine. Don't get me wrong. There is a place, and when you've got really high blood
mm,
pressure or really bad diabetes, yes, there is a place. But diabetes, again, is something. If you make the right changes, you type 2 diabetes, and you say, for example, lose the weight by doing exercise, eating healthily, getting enough sleep. The studies show you can actually get rid of your diabetes, but you've got
wow.
to make those serious. So, it's not easy. It's not easy, but even if you can't go the full way, you can do the lifestyle changes. It means you're on less number of tablets.
Okay. I mean, I commend you because I don't think my GPs are watching, but I know it's when I go to my GP surgery, it's a machine. You go in, you've got your 15 minutes, you're allowed to bring one issue, and God help you if you've got another problem because they're not really interested in, you need to book another appointment. And I think it's just so
I,
encouraging to, sorry, go on.
yeah, I was going to say, I must say that it's not that they're not interested. Again, they are
Mm,
paid by, they're not paid to see you for two different things. Given the fact, given the fact that two things might mix is a different story. And that's where a lot of GPs, as I said, I was at a conference not too long ago, and I was on the conference with some of the GPs, some of them you met at my party,
yeah.
and it was about the holistic approach to medicine. It was, and they all agreed 15 minutes really to get to the crux, the root cause of the problem is never enough. And so what they're always doing is firefighting, and on this conference, it was about having that chat with the patient. Tell me, what is your normal daily routine? And the biggest question I think we find answers from is when you say to somebody, what's your sleep like?
Mm,
And once you says I don't get a lot of sleep. I don't do this. I don't do that. You start to say that, especially when it comes to gut problems. People don't understand that gut problems, there is a link between not getting enough sleep and a lot of conditions. So when somebody tells me they're not sleeping enough, yeah, that opens up so many different things. And we're all meant to be getting, I would say, between 6.5 to 9 hours of sleep. I don't get enough sleep. I think the evidence and studies show, for example, that you could eat the healthiest lifestyle, you could do all the exercise, but if your sleep is not what it should be, it trumps everything. So if people take one thing away from today, is try and get enough sleep, because that's where your body repairs itself. You see, when you sleep, that's where your body repairs itself. That's where
Mm,
your gut microbiome is at its most effective. And so, that is where, there's links between diabetes. Once you're not getting enough sleep, you're at increased risk of diabetes. So there's just so many things out there which people don't tell you, that if you get enough sleep, that if you did exercise and it ate healthily, I would say 60 to 70% of the conditions like diabetes and hypertension, which are what we call lifestyle conditions,
mm,
we could we could reduce the incidence of. But you've got unfortunately the big pharma on one side, who will never really want that to happen, because if everyone was healthy, then there'll be no money to be made in making all these new drugs.
exactly, exactly. But oh boy, you just exploded a landmine for me when you just spoke about the sleep thing and how that can be. See, I mean, my GP. I mean, again, I'm learning, right? But when you've
Yeah.
had a good night's sleep. But nobody ever asks how you're sleeping.
Mm.
It's just
Yeah, no, they don't. It's the number one root cause of problems. Again, they did a study where they sleep deprived people, and at one stage, the people that they sleep deprived became mentally unstable. And so
yeah,
you can see, again, somebody, depression. We know. I mean, I keep digressing onto things, but
yeah,
like, for example, depression. People start running or doing exercise, it's been shown to help depression. And
yeah.
we're going to be starting across Hertfordshire and West Essex soon, where when people come in for, if they're about to start on an antidepressant,
Mm,
we will sit them, have a chat with them, not to say don't take the tablet,
yeah,
but just to remind that actually it's better. We don't, ideally, we wouldn't want you to be on these antidepressants long term. 80% of people, I would say, don't need to be. I think a good 20% maybe do need to be on them for a longer period. But if we can just get people doing some more exercise. I was watching the Great Manchester Run today, and again, there were people that were giving testimonies about the fact that they wanted to kill themselves, and they went into the gym to go and run on a treadmill, to run as fast as possible, to see
mm,
if they could damage. And then when they came out of the gym, they said he was so happy and smiling that it just turned it all around. And I just feel that if people just take a step back and do some of the little simple things, a little bit of exercise. And what I do when I'm talking to people in my pharmacy, I just give them a little task. I say, look, all I'm saying is 5 minutes every day.
yeah.
And everybody first hear that, you think, oh yeah, I could do that. But I would challenge you or anybody that's listening to try and do 5 minutes every day for 30 days. It's not an easy thing to do. It sounds like it is, but waking up in the morning and doing that 5 minutes, it's not easy. But if you can do it, such a big difference mentally and physically. And that's why when I was talking about sleep again, exercise, they say if you have a really good day of exercise, you will sleep a lot better, you know and again, one thing I would urge everyone to think about is, we always say that everything in this world is created twice: once as an idea, then in the physical. So everything around you, your phone, your TV, everything, it was someone's idea first,
First,
and then it a physical. But yet we think our bodies are different, but it's not. Our bodies are very much the same. Everything that goes on up in our brain, the stress comes out in the body. So making sure we Meditate, making sure we get enough sleep, will definitely help whichever condition we're looking at. Again, dementia is something that's becoming, quite a bit, getting a bit of press lately. A lot more of
Yeah.
our elderly people getting dementia. Studies are showing, again, that's linked to sleep, not getting enough sleep. Apparently, I think it's the first 2 hours, so between 10 and 12, is where your brain does like a cleansing sort of process on the brain, where it stops you depositing certain proteins in the brain. And if you're not getting that sleep between 10 and 12, you're missing out on that. So that would therefore start to put you at potentially greater risk of getting dementia later on. So, sleep, honestly, I try to sleep as much as I can now, because as I'm getting older, and we really, you know,
They laugh at me. I tell people I've been slipping a bit, but I say I like to be in bed by 10 o'clock. And it doesn't always happen, but I've got an alarm that lets me know that I should be moving towards my bed somewhere around around that particular period of point in time. I hear some people laugh like, "Oh, why are you going to bed so early? Why are you going to bed?" Granted, I get up early as well because I like to be out. I do a little bit of exercise in the morning, so I want to be up and get out because I know it does change the way that you feel. But that idea of going to bed early, and really, unless you're working, chances are, if you're up, or correct me if I'm wrong, today, probably just watching TV, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. You're right. You just get mixed up with things, and obviously with the mobile phones these days, people are scrolling away on their mobile phones, and
Yeah,
that's. But I think that again, I try my best, like you, 10 o'clock. It doesn't always happen, but by 11, and like you said, no, when I've had a good sleep, oh my God, you wake up in the morning, and again,
yeah,
exercise. They say exercise first thing in the morning. It really puts, you start the day,
yeah.
successfully. And that's something I've started to incorporate again, is going out for a walk every morning, 5 days a week, at least 30 minutes, even if I don't do anything else,
Yeah.
just to get out. And I think get out on the road, 30 minutes every morning, it makes a difference. Honestly, it really does. So yeah, that is something that I'm trying to stick to, and try to sort of raise awareness about, making people just think, look, just get out there, just walk. I'm not saying run, just walk. Do some walking regularly. It really does make a difference. Yeah.
Good. All right, so there's a couple of things, right, that you've already piqued my interest a little bit. You've spoken about diabetes. I think you even spoke about high blood pressure. I know those are things that you're quite passionate about. So tell me, or give us some tips or your understanding in terms of best ways to be able to manage both those symptoms, which do affect people of color quite a lot, really, diabetes and hypertension, right?
Yeah, no, they do. It is, a lot of it is obviously linked to our lifestyle, some of it is linked to the fact that we're in this country, and I mean, that's my sort of link to segue into vitamin D. Obviously, vitamin
Yeah,
D is linked inextricably to things like diabetes. Not totally linked, but I think if your vitamin D levels are low, the evidence shows that there could be an increased risk of developing diabetes.
really?
So yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So if your vitamin D is low, in some people, it will increase their risk of getting diabetes, because
yeah,
what happens with low in vitamin D, because vitamin D affects so many processes in the body. It affects so many processes in the body. And obviously, we've come from a country where we have lots of sun and lots of vitamin D. So, we've come to a climate where we're not getting as much vitamin D. I'm not saying it's on its own,
yeah.
uh, 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 but it is linked. There's so many different factors that are linked in. Um, but diabetes and hypertension, those two, again, lifestyle, I would say, lifestyle.
Whoa. We're going to have to stop it right there, Tunde. We're going to have to save some for next week. Thank you so much indeed to everybody who's jumped on and enjoyed what you've heard. Remember to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Please do that. Remember to go check us out at www.soulfoodgospel.com, the home of great Christian entertainment. And on behalf of Olive and myself, I would say, do not render evil for evil. Be the change. No. I shouldn't even try that. That's her line. I should just say this. God bless. Take good care. Remember, part 2 of Mr. Shokoya is coming next week. We will see you there.
What's on your mind?